Hello and welcome to Soups and Sabers. My name is Jordan. With me today discussing Daredevil is Ron. How are you today, Ron?
I'm doing better than Adam. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. We'll get to Adam. Chris, how are you today, Chris?
I can't believe Rod just stole my intro, but I'm doing pretty good. It should be fun to talk about a really good episode.
Yeah, we're going to be discussing episode 4 of Daredevil Born Again, which was called Sic Semper Systema, and it was directed by Jeffrey Notchmanoff and written by David Feige. I don't see any relation to Kevin Feige, and Jesse Wikuto.
Interesting.
Yeah. All right, Ron, go ahead and give me your initial thoughts to episode 4.
Sure. So this is probably my favorite episode that we've seen so far. And I see a lot of people kind of saying that online as well. That seems to be a pretty popular sentiment. I feel like every single week on this show so far, I've said like at the end of this episode, it feels like Matt realizes that he can't escape who he is as Daredevil. But I feel confident in saying this time, with the way this episode ended, both Matt and Fisk fully from this point on know they can't run away from who they really are. They aren't Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk. They are Daredevil and they are Kingpin. And for the second half of this show and going forward throughout the rest of it now, I assume that that's how we're going to be operating. So I thought it was a great way to sort of wrap up that first little character arc that both of them had, while also setting up a lot of really interesting plot points for the future. We got stuff with Muse, we got stuff with Punisher, just a whole ton of stuff that's really like laying the foundation for what we're going to get in the second half of this show. So it was just as good of a wrap up as it was a prepper for what's next, I think. So I think that was probably my favorite part of it and why it was my favorite episode of the show so far.
All right, Chris, give us your thoughts.
I was really jazzed up for the finish of that episode when you got Fisk going to see Adam. You've got Murdock on the roof practicing his Daredevil stuff. And you're just like, oh, it's on. It felt so good to be back in Daredevil stuff. It felt like these characters were becoming less restrained, and it kind of feels like the handcuffs are off and the show is just gonna go crazy from here. And I was really excited about this episode because you got a lot of great Wilson Fisk, Vanessa stuff. Like that was really good. You got a lot of good interactions with Matt. I thought, they keep making that Muse tease. I think it's going to end up being pretty much a banger. This episode was very fun, and I thought there was a lot of social commentary that just kind of hit you in the face really hard in this episode that I don't always know that it's coming with the show because they punch you with the face, kind of Frank Castle style. They basically do what Matt Murdock did in to Frank Castle, where he like punches her in the face and he's like, I'm sorry. And he's like, that's the most honest thing you did, Red. Like, yeah, that's kind of where I was with this episode. My emotions were kind of punching on all cylinders.
Yeah, the Bernthal stuff, that's all from the reshoots. Apparently he was not a fan of the original direction and almost didn't come back, or was shooting some stuff that maybe he didn't like and was going to walk. And you could tell too, because in this conversation they bring up Bullseye by name as well, so it also shows that it's in the rewrite. That's why there are 2 writers on this. From what I figure, I think I read David Feige was the original writer, and then the other writer is the one that added new scenes to it. Is kind of what I had seen online. So I really enjoyed this episode. I think this might be my favorite one of the 4 so far, just because of that conversation was just so well done between those two. And seeing Matt use his sense of, I guess, smell, right, and hearing to like figure out where he's going, and when that finding that bullet by just realizing that with something else that fell, right, how it rolls, and then just being able to follow it exactly down and picking it up. I do think he should have probably had gloves on, but I'm assuming this is not going to be used as evidence.
No, yeah, no.
But for him, he wanted to figure it out. He feels the skull on there, right? And I guess is known where Frank has been hiding out. But I think the thing that continues to really wow me by the show is how they are structuring Fisk and Murdoch as almost two sides of the same coin, right? They were both taking the high road in that diner scene of we've changed. And since then, they have continued to slip and slip and slip to the point where he's practicing with the Billy Club at the end of this. And Fisk, we've seen he's been, torturing Adam, but also I read somebody pointed out, like he's having this really nice meal, which is not like the diet that he's been having with eggs and stuff. So he's falling back into that, season 1 of the original show, Wilson Fisk. And I just can't wait to see how they continue to kind of parallel these characters down their paths.
Yeah. It's been, like you said, two halves of the same coin. Like, for Matt, it's giving into the rage, right? It's about not wanting to essentially become something that Foggy wouldn't be proud of, right? For Fisk, it's about not wanting to become, or go back to being, I should say, the person that New York wouldn't be proud of. Because it does seem like at the end of the day, he's still, as much as he's Kingpin, he does want to make New York like better. It's like the villain thing, right? They all think they're right, but he's doing it in the way that Kingpin would, which is not ideal in method by any means. So it's really interesting to see. I think, like I said in my opening, from this point forward, we have the understanding that the character themselves know that there is no changing. The leopards aren't changing their spots here.
Next week we've got the two episodes that we're going to be seeing, back to back. They're releasing both of those episodes 5 and 6 together. So I'll be really interested to see if those are like still like a forward progression with the Punisher and stuff, or if he's coming back around in the last 2 episodes, that were rewritten or completely new stuff, and that these next 2 are maybe more of the Muse stuff, since we got that tease at the end of this episode of like, are he still out here? We've kind of been getting those teases each episode of him like spray painting or whatever, but this time we're seeing like real stuff with him like carrying somebody, that it's like, all right, I do think this might be the thing that gets handled next.
Yeah, like draining the blood.
Yeah,
like it seems like at least the next 2, that's exactly where we're going. Everything that's going to happen with him, and who knows if Heather's going to be involved at this point. It would be interesting, because it seems like she's doing at least a decent enough job of helping Fisk and Vanessa like talk through whatever they're like dealing with. So her not being there is probably going to be really tough for them to not have that mediator if Muse were to do what we think he's going to do, and like maybe go after Heather, sort of that crazy fan, assuming that the theory is correct, that he was that crazed fan that came up to her at her book signing.
I think we can say the theory is correct, because he was credited as a special guest star in this episode and only appeared as Muse. So I think we are at the point now of they haven't been able to hide it. It's the bad thing about like all the rules with crediting and stuff, because that stuff gets. I remember when I would watch like Lost, and they'd be trying to keep it under wraps of who is like cameoing or like who's making a special guest star appearance. But in the credits, like special guest star, this person, you're like, oh, we're gonna see that guy again. but rules are rules, I guess. But
Ooh, just had a theory about this pop in my head, actually. So if Heather just disappears, I wonder if Vanessa will think Fisk had something to do with her disappearance after, she sort of pulls Vanessa aside after their little session in this episode and does the do you feel safe at home thing, which first of all cracked me up because it immediately made me think of the Breaking Bad scene, I am the danger. Like Vanessa doesn't need anybody watching her. But I wonder if it'll be a thing where, like, not a major plot point, but just to continue to maybe sow some distance in between Vanessa and Fisk, if she's like maybe resenting him because she thinks that he essentially made their therapist disappear, as it were. So that could be another little route they go here too.
And that could lead her to investigate more into Fisk and find Adam. And then that is the breaking point, right? She said before, like, if you did anything to him, right? Like, this is kind of that line in the sand where I don't know if it's if she finds that out, this is a irreparable damage, I think, to the marriage. And we'll see where we go from there with Fisk and Vanessa, because it's not his only love interest, right? We just read Devil's Reign. There are other love interests for Fisk after Vanessa's like death in the universe, in the Spider-Verse, right? She died, but she was also running away from Fisk due to him, how he was acting. So, like, there are other love interests and stuff that could happen with Vanessa, because I think if she finds out the deal with Adam, I don't see how she ever puts this behind them, right? They're trying to save their marriage, but this is like the biggest thing he's keeping from her after swearing to have no clue where he is, or like, it comes back up in this meeting of like, Adam, where is he? And they both say, oh, we don't know. And I think last week I said I thought Fisk was being honest with that because of the risk of losing Vanessa, but like, it is, again, it's part of that falling down the path that he doesn't want to go down, but is reverting himself to. And just think, he probably had it all at one point and has just gone completely, he could have been the mayor and been like a nice mayor, or like fix the city and do what he wants without having to resort to this stuff, and maybe could have had a better legacy, but he can't help himself. He just can't help himself.
I kind of wonder if there's a divide between a Kingpin persona and the Mayor Fisk persona. I'm not saying there's multiple personalities, but what I'm saying is I feel like when he's doing Kingpin stuff, it's a little easier for him. There's less restraint, and it's like he slips into it and he's comfortable there.
Well, because I think it's who he truly is, right?
Mhm.
Like, I think he's trying to act like somebody he's not when he's the mayor. And when he just falls into this trap of, well, this is how I've been. I mean, he killed his dad as a kid. Like, he hasn't been the same since, right? Like, that is that thing that has shifted his whole life to making him who he is.
And it goes back to what we were talking about last week. It's like, why does he even want to be the mayor? It doesn't make much sense for him, to be honest with you. It's straining the whole Vanessa thing to a point that's probably not salvageable, especially with the Adam thing hanging over it. And really, what does he care about more? Does he care about Kingpin more? Or does he care about Mayor Fisk? That's going to motivate his actions going forward. I think he's lying to himself. I think he sees an ideal version of himself, and because of his ego, that's what's driving the Mayor Fisk stuff. He sees the ideal self, and the real self is actually in the driver's seat.
And I think by the end of this episode, what he realizes is that those two things can't be separate. As much as he wants them to be, it's going to be Mayor Kingpin. Especially,
I think that's what the meal signifies, right? Like, he is now descended into this. This is who I am.
I think that's even going to be taken a step further, because, like, knowing that Vanessa's gaining all this power and all this stuff, it doesn't feel like it's going to end good for this relationship. I'm just wondering how far they'll take it. Like, it would be quite a bomb drop if like Fisk like actually killed her. Like maybe
like
she
a Lenny situation where he loves her so much he like
well, maybe
kills
not
her.
even that. What I'm thinking is like when she finds out about the Adam thing, maybe she tries to like put something together between these 5 families, essentially like putting a hit out on Fisk. And he ends up finding out about it and who's behind it. And he kind of realizes, like, yeah, I guess kind of like a Lenny thing of like,
Yeah.
I have to take her out of the equation because if not, she's probably going to be the one to take me out of the equation because she is my only weakness, essentially. I don't know if they'd go that dark on Disney, you know, and there's a lot of like domestic abuse kind of connotations over all that I don't know if they'll touch, but it would make for, I think, really a really interesting story and like set him up for a season 2 where he is just on a warpath and gives no fucks whatsoever about anything. If the only Vanessa is the only thing that like really tethers his human side at this point, and if she's gone, especially if he's the one responsible for it, he's just going to be a madman. Like even worse than we saw in the early seasons of the Netflix show.
I'm worried about Daniel. That guy is on his last thin ice. I mean, he said, if you do anything like this ever again, it's the last thing you do. And you're like, that doesn't sound like something a mayor says.
To be fair, I think a mayor would say it. Now, of course, like, are they literal about it? No, it would be more like a you're banished type of thing. But like,
it's very
or,
believable when you're king.
With Fisk, with Fisk, I would not doubt that it's the former.
No, I actually am not worried. I'm not worried about Daniel right now because I think he will take that 100%. Like, I'm worried about BB. If anything, because she's the one, like, it seemed like they're actual friends. They're out there hanging out at the bars, right? And he's just like telling her casually this stuff, not thinking it's on the record. And she publishes this article. I think he does the right thing in coming forward about it too. And I think he comes across as very sincere to Fisk with the whole, like, I would, look, I voted for you. I would keep voting for you. I don't care. Like, whatever, do whatever you got to do type of thing. And I don't see him kind of slipping up like that again. So I don't think he's going to trust BB too much going forward here.
My take
on a bit of a screw up.
My take on this is that I think it was all intentional. I think that he purposely did all this and like basically kind of put himself on the chopping block, taking a risk, but knowing that if it paid off, it would be like if he has that moment with Fisk where he like gets to relate to him and like basically had this breakdown of like, yeah, I messed up, but I'm still like so loyal to you and I will do anything. And like basically gives him a chance to grovel at Fisk's feet without like just looking like a kiss ass for no reason. Like having this way to show like that he's loyal and just made a dumb mistake while also having this situation going on with the lady Sheila, his current sort of advisor that like he's butting heads with over. And then, Daniel's the one who speaks up and kind of basically one-ups her a little bit. I think this Daniel kid is really smart, and I think he's pulling a lot of strings right now, and he's being very strategic because he has his eyes set on that sort of top advisor role next to Fisk. So,
No, I agree. I think he is going to, whether it was a mistake or not, or intentional or not, I think he's absolutely gunning for Sheila's spot. Right? It's like I get that vibe from him, and I think that would make sense because people have really talked up who've seen the whole season how well this actor has done, right? Like some people are saying he's like surprise of the season type stuff. So far, we haven't gotten enough of that for me to be like, wow, he's killing it. I mean, like he's obviously doing good, but I'm not like sitting here like Daniel's the best character in the show. Or
give him an Emmy. Yeah.
So I am interested to see what the actual arc for him is. I'll tell you, the Fisk scenes, I really enjoyed this episode. When he's at that school and they're singing "We Built This City." I loved it. But I'll tell you what really got me, what made me laugh the hardest was when he goes to the Latvian people and they're singing "We Built This City" in Latvian. I laughed so much. I was like, this is hilarious. Like, just this, it is one of those standard songs that's been voted as like one of the worst songs ever. Anytime somebody's building something, this is the go-to song. So I just love that both of those people, like the school and the Latvians were like, we gotta sing "We Built This City."
So I read that they had to replace the choir because they were too good. It didn't make the scene work.
Yeah.
And can you imagine being like really good at it, doing a great job, and then they're like, guys, it was too good. We have to bring these crappy singers in.
How bad do you have to feel to be the crappy kids they brought in? They're like, yeah, we brought you guys in because you're not very good.
Well, I think it's funny because this is kind of one of those things where I feel like people are not reading this stuff correctly when they're watching it. Because I've seen people complain about how cringe it was with the bad singing, and I'm like, that's the point.
Yep,
the point was the bad singing. What are you talking about? They're like, they should have got better kid singers. I'm like, what? That's the whole point. He's sitting there miserable because he doesn't want to be in this mayor position. This is part of the whole thing, right? Like, he wanted to be mayor, but it's one of those things where he has to go to all this stuff that's probably draining physically. And you're like, I don't care. Like, he does not care about this. And he has to sit there and listen to this god-awful singing. And then go to the Latvians, and not the Latvians, the Latvians, and hear it again, and it's just like, he really, I felt like he wanted to handle that Daniel situation with the union busting so much because it was like, this is what I wanted to do, right? When he's at the Red Hook stuff, like, that is what he wanted to do as mayor. He wants to actually make change, not sit there and be like, we built this city. Like, he doesn't care about that.
Exactly.
And they tried to do another song, and he's like, "Oh no, that was great. That was great.
Yeah, that was great."
Yep.
Who knew? Yeah, who knew the Latvians were such big Starship fans, man? It's crazy. That did catch me though, and I know you saw the tweet I put up yesterday. The Latvians. I was like,
Well, again, it's those things where people are looking so much for the cameos that people thought Latvia was Latveria. They're like, oh, there's a Doom reference. It's like, that's a real country.
No.
I will say, when I first heard Latvia, I was like, did they say Latveria or Latvia?
Same.
And I'm like, all right, Latvia. Okay.
That's what I did. Yeah, I heard a lot, and I was like, yeah.
But no, that was great. Let's see. So this Red Hook stuff keeps coming up. This is that area where Foggy mentions it when he's talking about his witness, right? We've had the truck driver last week was killed there in that area. And now this is a place that he is looking to like revitalize as like a harbor and also as a business center for that area. So it seems to be like a continuing thread throughout these first 4 episodes of this is maybe important. We know it is, I guess, tied in with the crime area, which is why I think Fisk thinks he can turn this area around, is because he'd be able to maybe lean on those 5 families. Because they were just saying there was a murder like the night before. I don't know if it was supposed to be the truck driver, because that was like, I don't know if it was that or if they're just saying like, oh, there was another one and there's that many like all the time. But just interesting that this is what his project is. And I love this scene, made me laugh too, when he's like, all right, let's do it. And then Sheila's like, well, we have to do this. He's like, all right, let's do that. And she's like, well, before we do that, we have to do this thing. And they go to like all of this stuff, have to backtrack and be like, all right, so we have to do like a survey. All right, well, let's do the survey then.
And then Daniel's like, fuck it, bro. Let's just do it all right now.
Yeah. And he was like, I was going to say that, Sheila. I was going to suggest this.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I'm not really sure what exactly the deal for that's going to be. It would be funny if like he promises that it's going to be this really nice area for everybody and he ends up just turning it into like his high-tech headquarters for his vigilante task force or something like that. Like I could totally see that being a move sort of post season 1 where it seems like we're gearing up towards a more and more vicious Wilson / Kingpin with every episode we go. So I think we're going to start seeing more of like, he's going to start being less of a mayor for the people and more of a mayor for himself. So I think ultimately that site's probably, if it's relevant going forward and it's not just like something they've been using as a minor plot point, I don't think it's going to be something for the people by the time it's all said and done.
It's also something that could be more conflict with Vanessa because it feels like a hotbed of her business.
Oh yeah, true.
And you almost wonder if there's something in the back of his head that goes, "This is another claw for our relationship."
It is a real place, but also just in the comics, it was the secret headquarters for the Green Liberation Front, and also Hydra had a secret base there at one point. Captain America also moved to Red Hook after he revealed his identity. So it's popped up a few times, but just so it could just have, it seems like it always has ties to some sort of seedy thing going on.
I think it's kind of just like Hell's Kitchen too. It just sounds cool. Red Hook,
Yeah.
It's like it like really fits the like vibe of the show. So
very much so.
Okay.
So can we talk about this? Can we just talk about this hilarious therapy session that they had?
Yeah.
We had
it. You went to go see Adam? We had a dialogue. Like, yeah, all right. We had a dialogue. This dude's gonna die from a log in your basement.
Well, we do know that it wasn't just a dialogue at this point, right? He is completely kidnapped.
And we do see in one of the trailer, like one of the teasers for the upcoming episode, that it looks like Fisk throws him pretty good against a wall. I don't know if it's going to be a flashback where we see like basically that dialogue, or if that's like something afterwards, like maybe he's complaining in the cell and he just like rips him out of it and, shut up.
It's probably after his meal. He needs to get some cardio in, get some exercise in. So he's like, now I rough him up. All right.
The Wilson Fisk Workout Center.
I torture you by eating this great food right in front of your face, and then I'm going to pummel you.
It really is hilarious to think like the signifier that Kingpin is back is just a big ass bowl of pasta. It's like, look out. He's got the sausage. He's got the sausage.
I'm loading up on carbs, Matthew Murdock.
I will be back to 700 pounds by the end of the year. Then you are.
Well, he has been trimmer, right? He's been a little trimmer since the original, I would say, right?
Big time.
I don't think you can carry that weight on you just as an actor. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think you can like when linemen retire from the NFL, they lose all that weight. I think when you're as big as Vincent D'Onofrio got, I don't think you can keep that.
Yeah. You got to bulk up and then lose it for other roles or just to be healthy. One thing I thought that was a really great thing here was Angela, the niece, of course, of White Tiger, right? And
the next White Tiger.
Yeah, maybe, right? The kid actress for this was fantastic, by the way. She's like reaming Matt out on this and then just like loses it. And it's one of those things where I was affected by it in the sense of I can't imagine going through this as a kid like she has. And he's like, hey, we got him out, right? And she's like, oh, what good did that do him, right? Like he's dead. And I think this is one of the things that's going to spur, and one of the reasons why Matthew Murdock, as well, is like, okay, now it is time for maybe me to pick up the billy clubs again. Is I think he feels like he let this girl down, not just Hector down, right? Which is one of the things he was dealing with, but This seems like one of those conversations I feel like that I would call like the Uncle Ben conversation with Peter in Spider-Man of like while he's bleeding out after getting shot, is like, Peter, like and it's like one of those things where you're like, this is maybe a turning point for Matt. We also get that with Frank later when Frank drops like the hammer when you have him say, Bullseye got life, and he said, how about Foggy? Did he get life? It's like,
You get life, man. Let me ask you something. Dude, his Shane was coming through in that speech so much. It's like, it's crazy.
It is funny though, because like Shane was like such a douche I couldn't stand, but it's like as Frank, I'm like, yeah, tell him.
Yeah.
Get the cowl back on,
they're
man.
not that far apart from the way that he acts them. It's just like
yes,
a little key differences and things, obviously, that about the character themselves. But the approach is the exact same. Like, that speech is 100% one that Shane would have given in The Walking Dead. It would have been about something that was like an inappropriate time, yada, yada, what have you. A million different ways to where it's all just about the framing.
Well, when he said, you hear his voice, don't you? You speak for him.
Yeah.
And that's why I do what I do. And I hear my little boy, and he says, get him, Daddy. Get every single one of them. And that, dude, that is such a heavy like thing, because he says it so assertively, and it's like so driven into who he is as Punisher. And it's like, I can imagine he didn't like the way it was going, because this is perfect. Like, if it was different than this, I don't even want to see it.
Yeah. Now I'm just picturing Matt from this point on hearing Foggy in his ear saying, get him, Daddy, to Matt.
I think that might be a different dialogue.
Yeah. Let's talk about the case of the week, right? I thought this was they bring up some good things in this discussion, right? We have the guy who ends up getting caught stealing. And one way this is the MCU immediately is like, could it have been a Skrull, right?
Yeah,
and Matt's just like, no. But hey, this is a new way people might be able to get out of stuff.
Yeah.
We didn't really think of it that way back in the Secret Invasion days. But like now that people know that Skrulls are out there, I wonder how many times people are trying to use this plea in court. Sir, Your Honor, it was actually not me. It was a Skrull.
I'm sure it's happened a lot, and I'm sure we will see it again on screen exactly 0 times, because we will never get a reference to Secret Invasion ever again after this. Yeah. I don't think.
But Skrulls also exist outside of Secret Invasion, so I think it is it is a possibility. But
I gotta give him credit for taking the swing. I'm like, could it be a Skrull?
Yeah, he's like, no. Like, I just love Matt's like, no. Matt's probably heard this a lot with people like this, where he's like,
yeah,
no. The whole scene was very interesting too. Like I noticed just as I was listening to, like, before they got to like the heavy stuff at the end of it, like him walking in, and like, I'm glad I retweeted something about this today on Twitter, because like
that makes sense.
Yeah, I knocked my light over here. But there is a scene where Matt's talking to the guy, and he's like, I will get you. You will be out on Friday, like, good to go. Like, the dialogue between them just felt very, like, weird and funny in this scene. And then there's this part of Matt, like, getting his flirt on again with this EA, another one. It's like, just add her to the freaking pile at this point with Matt. Like, the dude is just...
It's like he can't help himself. He just can't help himself.
He's charming.
He's got to talk to Tiger Woods' therapist when he had the sex addiction or something. I don't know. But he's all, and it's just like...
Is that why Matt wears red?
Though. I mean...
yeah.
Is that the Parks and Rec?
Red Daredevil.
The Parks and Rec, Tiger Woods golf, like, reference.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the golfer man wearing red because of Tiger Woods.
No, but like it felt so weird, and like they didn't make the guy who was arrested very redeemable. It seemed at all like the super long rap sheet, just lie after lie to try to get out of it. And they do make you empathize with him by the end. And, he talks about like, if I go in, then my SSI gets cut off and, all yada, yada, all the stuff that happened. So it was a good balance, I think. Sometimes in these shows, we're all very progressive guys, but when they do this kind of stuff, they can almost make it come off a little hokey, where it's presented like nobody who gets arrested does wrong and every single cop is horrible. And that's like, and it kind of lays it on too thick. This felt just very real to me. It's like, yeah, the guy's not perfect. Yeah, he's got a long rap sheet, but like at the end of the day, he's human and he's got problems like all of us do. Worse than a lot of us do in his case. Yeah. So I think it was a good, very human way to represent it.
They have the line, right, of like they'd rather spend 5 times more to lock me up than to feed me.
Yeah.
And this is where like you can debate the whole like, should he be in jail, should he not, right? Long rap sheet, whatever. But when you have it really shows in that scene where Matt is talking to like the DA, right? And they're going back and forth and they're lowering the number. And he's like, all right, like what, 10 days is what he gets? And
you will be out on Friday.
With time served already from like what he's been sitting on. So he's out by Friday.
I think it was 8 days in total.
Yeah. So, she says a line like, well, his last one was like 30 days, so we'll go up to 35, right? Like we'll just start at 35, whatever. And it just seems to be like for us, we're sitting there like, yeah, take the deal. You're out by Friday, but you're not thinking about like the other side of it where he's like, I'm already struggling with getting either a job or keeping a job or keeping my benefits because I am now in jail. And the whole reason he got arrested was stealing caramel corn, right?
Yeah.
As they say. Which is
caramel
like
corn, as they say.
Well, yeah, because I was waiting for Chris to be like caramel corn.
It drives me crazy. I wish they would have just stuck to one because they used both in the episode. Like if they just said caramel the whole time or caramel the whole time, I think it would have annoyed me less. But you had characters saying caramel and then caramel. It was like,
it was a weird way like I feel like he like combined the two too. He called it like caramel or something. It definitely
it was weird.
It was weird.
I didn't notice that. I only kept hearing caramel. That's what I kept hearing. But I didn't hear the caramel or caramel.
But really, like the meat of the conversation though is like the cost of being in the system, the cost of being down on your luck. It just gets worse. And then the cops are eating the goddamn popcorn. It's saying it's evidence and that they get to eat it, where he's arrested for it, and it's damn well they're not paying for it. It's ridiculous. And he's like, I wanted a treat. I wanted a God-for-honest dessert. Like,
so
I felt for him.
The whole thing I'm trying to, I guess, make a point on is like Matt and the DA are going back almost like it's a game, right? 35. No, I want 10. I want 15. And then going back and forth like it's a bidding session.
But this is like a human life we're talking about.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, it's a human life. And when he gets back to that guy, Matt's just thinking, just take it. You're out. And as he says, no. And the thing is that is interesting about that, right, is that they just start at 35 because his last one was 30 days or whatever, right? And they're thinking, all right, well, he didn't learn in 30 days, 35. But it's not that he didn't learn. It is literally that because he lost his benefits, it has to, he's low on money, like he ends up stealing it. And it's because of him being in there for the longer period, right? It's really more of, yes. It's just the system continuing to feed itself, but also like, is it actually making anybody, what's the word I'm looking for here? Where you actually end up rehabilitate. Yes, rehabilitate. Is it actually rehabilitating anybody? That's a big question in our system right now, right? And is a question that Matt should be concerned with, because he also just had his guy get off legally and then get murdered, right? So it's like, is the system working at all, right? We're going to put this guy in jail and spend more money just to incarcerate him to see if that will rehabilitate him, which it doesn't, right?
No.
And then you also have, okay, well, the guy also just got off, ends up getting killed by the police, is what they think, right? Now, I guess let's lead into that too. We keep getting this run-in with the cop, right? Who was one of the ones that he beat and stuff. Now
Officer Powell
he says about like, hey, this badge was worn by my grandfather, by my dad, by my brother, by my cousins, right? So was he the one that didn't have the Punisher tattoo, or did he?
did not.
Did not. Yeah. Do we think he might be dirty, but not like all the way across that line? Because it seemed like he was pretty sincere with this.
And moreover, Matt is listening to his heartbeat, and it doesn't.
And he's
change.
not lying. Yes.
Yeah, he's telling the truth. So that one really threw me for a loop. I'm not really sure. Like,
it's because he doesn't think he's a bad person. He doesn't think he's a dirty cop. He thinks he's a cop, and this is part of being a cop. Like, he's honest. He's sincere.
But he's not, because what he's talking about is he point blank tells Matt, I had nothing to do with White Tiger's death. And there was no change. The heartbeat thing is when somebody's lying. So if he was lying when he said that, it would have started to go a little more. And it was just flat,
So my thought with this is that while he was hanging out with the Punisher cop in that apartment, he maybe wasn't going to kill the CI, the witness. It was more of to put pressure as his criminal informant, being like, hey, you did not see us there, right? And maybe Matt's misreading this as, oh, he's coming after him. And even when he's going after him as the witness, when Cherry fools them, right? It's Officer Powell who finds Cherry and is like, damn, like he's not here. I think now we can kind of determine that he was not the one who was going to kill him. Probably had no idea that was even going to happen, but more of like he's my criminal informant. Let me lean on him and be like, you cannot do this. I'll get you some more benefits if you don't rat me out, type of thing. And then now the Punisher cop, or one of them who has the tattoo, ends up taking that move that maybe he doesn't agree with. So it's like almost like he's dirty in the sense of not like he's not clean, right? Like he was trying to get Hector imprisoned for beating up his CI, but like a lot of times I feel like they have that type of relationship with their criminal informant where they think he's feeding us information, but also we'll kind of let him off the hook a bit more, but it's okay if I beat him up. He's a criminal, right?
Yeah.
And I need to get this information out of him or whatever. So this is how I do it. And they don't see it as wrong, but he's not all the way across the line of I'm going to kill White Tiger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's levels to it, it seems like. And there's the cops who are just the cops who are that sort of, band of blue, only looking out for their own kind of thing, which I think Powell falls into. Then there's this other little rogue group inside the police force, we assume, that is all of these Punisher cops. But it's interesting, though, because it does show that there is a divide between those two sides. And I think in these coming weeks, we're going to start to see what are the dynamics of that within the police department. Who knows? Who doesn't know? Mm-hmm. What is the relationship like between the cops who are like that and the ones who aren't like that? Could we maybe see a bit of a face turn for Powell to sort of, start to see this stuff happening within the force and maybe being one of the ones that speaks up about it? Maybe ends up with a bullet in his head for it. Who knows? But yeah, no,
they're building his character up. I mean, they're doing more for his character than the story really calls for. So that might be a good point.
I could see that where like this might be somebody that Matt actually ends up trusting in the sense of how he's done that in the past in these in like the
Mhm.
Netflix shows of stuff where he's like, you know, in season 3 he trusts Ray Nadim, because he's like, he could tell that he maybe got roped into stuff that he wasn't really in charge of or a part of, and he trusted him by listening to, is he lying to me? And now that he maybe knows that this guy isn't lying about that, he might be able to use him in ways to get to those other cops, and maybe even like trust him enough to be like, hey, here's who actually killed White Tiger, and him being, and maybe then, you know, Powell will be like, hey, that's kind of putting us in a bad spot as cops. Like, why would you do this, and actually do the right thing and arrest them, right? Like, I could see it kind of going along that path as well.
Don't have to like him, but could be useful.
Right.
Yeah. Especially as we know that they're not going to stop here. They're going to continue doing bad things. And like, maybe they do something that touches a little too close to home with Powell personally. Like, maybe there's another cop who finds out about it and they kind of, you know, to keep him quiet sort of thing, something like that. But yeah, it does seem like we're going to, at the very least, start learning a lot more about what the full dynamic is inside of this police department, because it has been very vague so far while we've been focusing on, you know, more of the hero side and Fisk. Like, this whole thing's been looming in the background, but we've just been waiting for the light to be shined on it. And I think now it is.
I guess the only thing we didn't really touch on is BB, you know, who did leak the stuff. Does this cut her off from the Fisk? That's why I guess I was kind of surprised that she posted this, because it seems like maybe that will kill her golden goose of having access to Fisk. Do we think that she's done, or is this going to be almost like a Fisk might actually call her back in and be like, you know, kind of put more pressure on her? I don't know, like,
Put more pressure on her. I think it shows she's young and naive. I think it shows she's inexperienced. And Wilson Fisk was thinking that he's going to use her in the first place. This just makes him do that more. I think Fisk is just like, all right, now we're going to get even whether she likes it or not.
And I also think it can be another thing that Fisk can use against her to be like, you know, you wrote this scathing story on me, but I'm still going to invite you back in and still give you some of that, you know, some of that face-to-face time that reporters would be dying for. Yeah, I don't think this is the end of that at all. I think it's the first punch thrown in what's going to be a very long sort of mental warfare fight between them.
But I don't even think BB knows she's fighting Fisk's war. I feel like she's just kind of falling into it. She got a scoop and she used it because she needed a story. I think this is her inexperience more than a well-crafted plan. You guys think Daniel's a little more conniving than I give him credit for. I think he's more on his feet, quick on his feet. But BB, I just think is inexperienced.
all right. Well, anything else about this episode before we head out?
No, just that I'm very excited to see, you know, we finally got the first like real glimpse at Muse this week, and he's got these bodies on hooks and, you know, things that were like ripped right out of the comics, by the way. Very cool.
Felt very, I'm playing Last of Us Part 2. It felt very you know, that in the Seattle stuff, but
I was getting a Professor Pig vibe very hard.
I could see that too. Or like almost like Hangman-esque as well in like the Arkham, where you go and like in the Arkham games, Arkham Knight, where you have to like go investigate like a body strung up and stuff. Like, it felt very, very similar. A lot of those type of themes and motifs in comic books.
Yeah, and Muse is an awesome villain. He is very grotesque. You know, he's perfect for this show. He is somebody who kills and then uses the blood in the entrails of his victims to create art. You know, we've already seen these murals popping up around New York, so who knows? I don't know if those were made in particularly.
I was gonna say, how does that work? Because like, won't that smell more than paint? Like, people walk down the alley like, oh God, what is this?
You
Like
would
if it's
think,
made of blood and entrails.
yeah, you would think. I don't know, like mixes it with the paint. Maybe the paint set
Maybe it's
smell.
also it's just New
Paint
York.
has a
where
really
you're like
strong smell, though.
walking
Yeah,
down,
yeah.
walking down
It's
New
like,
York alley, and you're like,
oh,
well, yeah,
it
that's
smells-
kind of.
It smells
better
like
over here.
entrails
It smells
today.
better over here, actually.
Oh.
Um,
Well, he's a perfect villain for the show because this whole thing is being torn down and then being born again and finding your inner self, and he literally uses insides for his outward expression. I mean, you can't get much more poetic with it than that in terms of theme.
Yeah, for sure.
Just real quick before we leave, I loved seeing that Matt still has all of this stuff stored and
Yeah.
has all those different color masks. And
Yes.
there's rumors, if you look at the set photos for season 2, that he might have a different colored suit.
Mhm.
Of course, we haven't seen it. He's wearing a big coat the whole time to make sure people can't see it. But
Yeah.
people have been able to look at the boots and be like, "Oh, maybe he's wearing the black suit or something
Black
like that."
one.
So,
Yeah.
so we'll see if that can, if that shows up, maybe by the end of the season. Or maybe he decides not to wear the red one after he wore it in the premiere. He's like, I'm going to wear the black one the rest of this season,
Yeah, like a hero in mourning sort of thing. Yeah, that'd be sick.
I always wondered how they'd decide that. Like if you're a hero like Batman or Iron Man or Spider-Man or, Daredevil, they have these different color ones. When are you like, today feels like yellow suit? And that's why he shows up in She-Hulk, wearing yellow.
Well, it's kind of weird that he has so many different colored suits because he's blind.
Yeah,
It's
but the people don't know Daredevil's blind. So like,
but does he know which one he's grabbing?
yes, the colors vibrate differently.
This is true. Yeah, this is true. That is a good question, though, Chris. Yeah.
Could you imagine though? Like he ends up like mix matching because he
That's
can't see.
Like the yellow
mask,
with the black.
red boots. So like, do you see Daredevil looks really uncoordinated today? I don't know what's going on.
Maybe he is blind.
Is he wearing a Batman glove? How did he even get that? Yeah, no, the style thing, it's just all about what you're feeling, where you're going. In She-Hulk, he was in San Francisco, so you got to bust out the more vibrant, the yellow, the red. When you're sad boy times, like all of my D&D characters, that's when you slip into the black. When you're just feeling like you're going to save your, regular standard day, that's when you bust out the red. There's definitely levels to it for sure.
I do wonder if like heroes sometimes are like, oh, I'm facing Kingpin today. He's my nemesis. Got to wear the red.
Yeah. Gotta go
wear the red. Go
classic
the red
home
will
uniform.
pop
It's like
the white suit. I need.
It's like
to
the
wear
prime
red
time
today.
game. You're pulling out the color rush.
Yeah,
Like-
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, like Spider-Man's like Green Goblin's active. He's like, gotta bust out the standard classic red and blue. Gotta go up against Goblin looking classic.
Yes.
That's freaking awesome.
Well, that'll wrap us up. But at Supes and Sabers on all of our social media, if you want to contact us there, leave in the comments what colors Daredevil suit you would wear when you face off against Kingpin. Kingpin wearing the Hawaiian shirt, maybe he's wearing something different then. He's like, But when he's wearing the white blazer.
Nice orange with some blue accents. Who knows?
Supes and Sabers, all of that. I know later this week we are also dropping this weekend, I guess, right? You guys are talking Absolute Batman, which you're recording like right after this.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's fun. And then we also have our comic book, our DC Comics Hero Suit Draft with Andy DiGenova from Holy Batcast. That's going to drop on Monday. So make sure you look out for that. The YouTube, of course, is the way we prefer people to watch that because I do add pictures of the suits and, like what suit it's called or whatever. Like all that kind of stuff is added in there. You can still listen to the audio.
Yeah.
If
We'll
you're
take anyone we can get.
Yeah.
But
I'm saying if you're like a hardcore fan
Yeah.
that already knows all the suits, the audio might work for you. If you're like, what suit did they even talk about? Instead of Googling, you could also just go to our YouTube, pull up the video, and see what suit we were talking about. And then later in that week, we will have the poll for you to vote on who had the best draft. So make sure you keep an eye out for that. The answer was me. And the answer was me because I want votes. I need votes. You'll be able to tell what team is mine, I think, just from what characters I picked as well. But yeah, okay.
Flash.
Supes and Sabers, social media. Keep an eye out for the Absolute Batman and the DC Heroes suit draft, and we will catch you all next time.